The space-time prism is a curio that can be found within the simulated universe, and if you're lucky enough to get it within your runs, you will be blessed by the fact that you will obtain one extra Eidolon at the beginning of combat. So it is just a lovely item in my opinion, not only because it increases the power of your team, but also because it gives you a little bit of a taste of what it would be like if you were to get that extra Eidolon on your character. That being said though, I personally believe that this curio has led me and some other players into not necessarily whaling, but at least incentivized us to get another Eidolon on certain characters. Because for some characters, their Eidolon 1 or even their Eidolon 2 might be incredibly busted, while for others, it is just there. It's not like the most amazing thing, but it is also not not like such a bad thing. And it is hard to tell sometimes whether or not this curio ever makes a difference, because with the abundant amount of blessings that you get within a simulated universe run, more particularly in Storm Disaster and Golden Gears, it is not really something that is too influential, but I still feel that it is important to discuss. Especially because I know that the very first time that I saw this curio within the early game in Honkai Star Rail, I fell in love with it and I thought, damn, let me check real quick what my next Eidolon does, just in case. And it was then that I started getting tempted over and over and over again to potentially get Eidolons. I have gotten a few, not many, but just some of two characters in particular, because I really enjoy them, and because I just got tempted. I was like, ooh, that looks really good. And that is how life is, apparently. That being said though, I wanted to make sure that this would be unbiased, because if I said, oh, this curio made me whale, it wouldn't really be that fair of an assessment to claim that this curio has made sales for Honkai Star Rail. So I went on to Reddit and made a quick little post asking the community about it, and not gonna lie, the reaction that I got there was way bigger than I expected. That post blew up for my standards. It had like 5,000 upvotes, I think, and I'm just both horrified but at the same time very happy. Like really happy. Actually, it might have been 2,000. I'm probably just exaggerating, but still, the amount of people that commented on it was great. Some people obviously said, no, it doesn't really matter, it's inconsequential. Other people were like, yes, specifically for this character. Or yes, because it was a run saver, because there are very few but very particular Eidolons that some highlighted. I feel like the ones that were of major note that I'm gonna go more in depth on and explain have been both Huohuo and Fushuan's Eidolons 2, Imbibitor Lune's Eidolon 2, which might be the most busted one of them all, Huohuo's Eidolon 1, as well as Black Swan's Eidolon 1, because they have been massive damage increases. I feel, because I know this one by heart, Ruan Mei's Eidolon 1 is absolutely great and wonderful. And aside from that, there have been other ones, especially Aventurine, as well as Acheron, which I was forgetting there for a quick second. And yeah, no, like legitimately, these have been Eidolons that can either massively boost or just be nice quality of life. And that is something that I do like about this game, that you don't necessarily need the Eidolons, but it can definitely help you out in not like both improving the character or making the character feel smoother, but smoother in a way of comfort and not necessity. So in my opinion, that is perfect game design. And I do want to clarify that I also adored how many people gave out different explanations as to why they got an Eidolon as well as why they didn't get an Eidolon. And one of the ones that I thought was great, and personally one of my favorite reasonings why some people decided to not go for Eidolons is because they didn't want to make the game too easy. And that is perfectly valid. A game is to be enjoyed by the challenge, by the difficulty, by how it feels to combat an obstacle and overcome it. And especially if you're able to just barely clear it, then it feels incredible. Like, for example, in the latest event, the Tidal Waves event, I remember being able to get all the double S ranks because I'm a maniac, but also because it was challenging, it was fun, it was cool to plan around and figure out how it would be the most optimal way to clear the content. And that is something that made me happy. And I feel like if I was able to just one-tap everything without thinking, it wouldn't really be the game that I love and enjoy so freaking much. And same applies for Memory of Chaos. I think I have the most amount of fun in these Memories of Chaos when I am literally on the verge of defeat. When I'm beating the last boss in Memory of Chaos 12 at round 20, when if I didn't kill it in that specific action, I wouldn't get all 3 stars, and it gets my adrenaline pumping, and it is just wonderful. I might be insane, but I just love it so much. This is also the reason why I adore the concept of both Simulated Universe, Swarm Disaster, and even more so Golden Gears with the addition of conundrums, because it feels like a roguelike, which also is one of my favorite genres, but also it gives me a challenge to overcome, something to beat, and I still need to defeat many more Conundrum 12s with all the die, because I am crazy, but I want to achieve it. And it's gonna be rough, but it's gonna be fun. And I do heavily encourage you guys to give them a try if you're able to. I don't want you all to suffer or feel forced into playing these endgame content. Take your time. That is something that I do want to make it very clear. At no point do I want anyone to rush the content, because then you might find it stale, or you might even find it as an obligation. And that's when the game can get ruined, because I know that I have seen people that have rushed at the very beginning of the game, and yeah, it just can lead to a bit of not much fun. But with that out of the way and properly mentioning it all, I want to go over every single Eidolon 1 and Eidolon 2 in the game, and we will be going in order from the very first limited 5-star that came out to the very last one, because I think it would be just that much more appropriate. So with all that being said, let us begin. Starting himself, we have Seele E1, which reads, when dealing damage to an enemy whose HP percentage is 80% or lower, crit rate is increased by 15%. Personally speaking, I like this Eidolon a lot, given how it's very easy to drop an enemy below 80% health, especially with a character on as the Hunt, you know, that is specialized on doing damage. So it really helps out massively in that department, and it lets you build more crit damage, meaning you can more easily and more reliably delete enemies when clearing content. However, where I think things shine massively is on her E2, which says the speed boost effect of Seele's skill can stack up to 2 times. Now, for those that don't know, Seele's skill lets her gain a 25% speed increase. So having a 50% increase is honestly wild, and this is also with, you know, taking into account that she is the fastest unit in the entire game. If I recall correctly, her base speed is 115, so that is a lot of speed. In the case of Jingliu E1, his E1 reads, when the Lightning Lord attacks, the damage multiplier on enemies adjacent to the target enemy increases by an extra amount equal to 25% of the damage multiplier against the target enemy. I don't really know how to interpret this, so I'm gonna make my best effort in assuming that every single time you attack one enemy with a little lightning hit, whenever you attack an adjacent one, next time it's going to deal more damage and so forth. So the more stacks you have and the more enemies there are, it's going to be better. Sadly, I don't think this is good when there's only one enemy. So I think this is kind of a meh one. I have no idea. If there's a genuine main in the comments, please do let me know. That being said though, E2 I do like, given how it says, after the Lightning Lord takes action, damage caused by Jingliu's basic attack, skill, and ultimate is increased by 20% for 2 turns. And honestly, every single time I see damage is increased by 20%, not attack, just damage as a whole, I love it. It's one of the best buffs that you can get, and personally speaking, just reading this makes me so happy for Jingliu. Coming up next, we have Silverwolf, a character that I am very biased towards because this is the character that essentially got me to download Star Rail. I saw the little chibi, the little characters in the splash art, and I'm like, I need this one. That being said, I also do have her Eidolon too, so once again, do take what I say with a grain of salt. Her E1 says, after using her ultimate to attack enemies, Silverwolf regenerates 7 energy for every debuff that the target enemy currently has. This effect can be triggered up to 5 times in each use of her ultimate. Now do take into account that her ultimate costs 110. So with all that being said, this essentially regenerates 35 energy plus the 5 that I do believe that you get simply for casting it, so you do regenerate 40. In total, this means that you essentially regenerated a third of your ultimate for using your ultimate, which in my opinion is really busted given how much defense threats you're able to provide with the ultimate. Additionally, you also have her E2, which essentially says when an enemy enters battle, reduces their effect resistance by 20%, and it doesn't specify for how many turns, meaning that this buff is permanent. They can never remove it, as far as I know. And honestly with that, I just adore it, because then this means you don't have to run an effect hit rate body piece on her. You can run an attack piece, and lets her go a little bit more aggressive. But on top of that, personally speaking, I just adore having this, because this guarantees 1 debuff already at the beginning of combat for characters such as Dr. Ratio, Acheron, or anybody running that particular relic set, whose name I don't recall, but the image will be here showing up. It's something about deep dive or whatever words. Moving on. Up next, we have Luocha. Once again, another character whose Eidolons I think are really good. For a disclaimer, personally speaking, I think that the more worth Eidolons that are in the game are not the ones for the DPS characters, but rather for those that are supportive characters, such as Preservation, Harmony, Annihility, and obviously Abundance, as we're talking about Luocha right now. And the reason being is because when we read Luocha's E1, it literally says, while the field is active, you know, that little AoE that lets you heal your entire party members, attack of all allies increases by 20%. And 20% is a very reasonable amount. I adore that. Especially as someone that plays a lot of Nihility characters and a lot of DOT characters. So with that being said, this would help a lot my Kafka, Black Swan, and GuanEIFN. I don't have this Eidolon, but I was very tempted to get it last banner. I ended up choosing not going for it because I really did want Aventurine. Moving on though, Luocha's E2 says, when his skill is triggered, if the target ally's HP is lower than 50%, Luocha's outgoing healing increases by 30%. If the target ally's HP is at 50% or higher, the ally receives a shield that can absorb damage equal to 10% of Luocha's attack plus 240 lasting for 2 turns. And I personally do adore this because this essentially gives you even more survivability on Luocha in case you were to need it. I don't feel like this is like that vital, but it is pretty good if I do say so myself. I personally do much adore that E1 that he has going on for himself. So yeah, definitely a very tempting one for me. Now, the next character is one that absolutely loathes having Luocha on his team. Not because it is bad synergistic-wise, but it is because it is bad lore-wise. That one is Blade. A character who loves to take damage, and personally speaking, I just adore how his Eidolon 1 works, which reads, Blade's ultimate deals additionally increased damage to a single enemy target, with the increased damage amount equal to 150% of Blade's total HP loss in the current battle. The HP Blade has lost in the current battle is capped at 90% of his maximum HP, and this value will be reset and reaccumulated after his ultimate is used. This means that the more damage you take, the more damage you will do, and personally, just stacking that up over and over and over again is absolutely incredible, and it's a big damage difference in my opinion. Like, especially if you have a very HP based blade, you know, where you're running more HP as opposed to wind damage bonus, like, it is crazy. And on top of that, his E2, while not the most overwhelming thing in the world, I do personally still like it because it reads, when Blade is in his Hellscape state, which, you know, he's always gonna be in it, his crit rate is increased by 15%. Now, this might not seem like the most interesting Eidolon, but do take into account that Blade naturally just gets 12% crit rate for existing through his ability tree, and add this 15% plus the regular 5% you get for like the regular character, and you have 32% crit rate to begin with, meaning that building artifacts for him becomes that much easier at Eidolon 2, and I personally just do adore that very much. Coming up next, we have Kafka, a character that I am kind of 50-50 about what my opinion is on their Eidolons. One, because they are nihility, so they're one of my favorite characters, and two, because they're damage over time, meaning they are some of my favorite playstyles. For that reason, I feel like I have a lot of biases, but I do love the fact that her Eidolon 1, Da Capo, says, when the talent triggers a follow-up attack, there's a 100% base chance to increase the DOT received by the target by 30% for 2 turns, and 30% is a lot of damage over time, especially when you take into consideration that this is increasing the damage over time dealt by all the allies at every single possible point. This would also include her ultimate and her skill, so that Eidolon 1 seems really good. The Eidolon 2 though reads, while Kafka is on the field, DOT dealt by all allies increases by 25%, which already kind of reads a little bit weirdly. It seems like an already just like passive aura, but from what I have heard, it's not really that strong. I'm not entirely sure, so again, this is one of the moments where if there's a Kafka main in the comment sections, I would love to know, because I am a bit iffy about it. As far as I know, this sounds really good, but I heard kind of bad things about it. Or maybe I just don't know how to read, because that genuinely is an issue of mine. But anyways, coming up next, we have Imbibitor Lune, a character that genuinely a lot of people have mentioned that they have been tempted to get their Eidolon, especially because Eidolon 2 has been just that busted. Because apparently a lot of people, when Imbibitor Lune released, they also had to deal with the Swarm disaster. And many people apparently had gotten his Eidolon 1, and when they did Swarm Disaster and got the Space Cheese, they got their Eidolon 2 temporarily, and they learned that it was busted. Now, the reason being is because both Eidolons synergize really well with each other. Now, for context, Eidolon 1 says increases the stackable Righteous Heart count by 4, and gains 1 extra stack of Righteous Heart for each hit during the attack. Now, you might be wondering, what does Righteous Heart do? Well, apparently, after each hit dealt during an attack, Danheng Imbibitor Lune gains 1 stack of Righteous Heart, this one now being increased to 2, increasing his damage by roughly 10%, and this effect can stack up to 6 times. Now, 10, lasting until the end of his turn, which personally speaking, that sounds absolutely busted. But then you add that onto the Eidolon 2, and you have the fact that after using his ultimate, Danheng and Imbibitor Lune, like he gets action advanced by 100%, and he's able to get one extra stack of the Squama Sacrosancta, which I'm hoping I pronounced properly. And those are the little extra stacks that you consume instead of skill points. So not only do you get to ultimate and get a turn for free, but also this turn is essentially completely skill point free, since you are essentially gaining 3 stacks to immediately use for 3 different, just immediately. I'm not sure what I was trying to say there for a moment there, but like, you gain 3 stacks that you can use on your next attack, which essentially makes your next turn free. And for that reason, Danheng and Imbibitor Lune is completely busted. Personally, I feel like this is the top tier Eidolon, but I haven't gone through all these, so maybe I will eat my words a little bit further into this video. Coming up after Danheng and Imbibitor Lune, we have Fuxuan, a character which I personally regret having skipped, because I was like, oh no, it's okay, I don't need this, they'll be fine, I have Japard. And while I still do adore Japard, Jeppy is my boy, I still regret having skipped Fuxuan, because not only did I miss out on a character that provides a lot of sustain, crit rate, and big amounts of defense, especially for things such as, you know, simulated universe, I also didn't get to know properly how busted she was going to be in many different scenarios, and that she was probably going to be one of the best units in the game. And with that also come some really amazing Eidolons, such as her Eidolon 1, which says the knowledge effect, which you gain through her skill, increases crit damage by 30%. So not only are you getting more HP, but you're also getting a 15% crit rate and 30% crit damage. If I do say so myself, that is some of the most busted sporting that I've ever seen. And then when you go further into her Eidolon 2, you have, if any team member is struck by a killing blow while the Matrix of Prescience is active, then all allies, again, all allies who were struck by a killing blow during this action will not be knocked down, and 70% of their max HP is immediately restored. This effect can trigger 1 time per battle, but the fact that it can make you survive a multi-death is incredibly busted, incredibly good, and I absolutely adore that. Now, I feel like that would mostly happen if you don't have the Matrix of Prescience up. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like there's a little bit of a convoluted thing there, but I do think it can be a run saver in things such as Conundrum 12 of Golden Gears or Swamp Disaster 5. So I do give this Eidolon very high praise for being a lifesaver, but it's not one that I would want to work around, if that makes sense. It's a good safety net, but I don't feel like safety nets are important when you are building for Memory of Chaos, for example, right? Following up an amazing support, we have one of the best DPS once again in the game, which is Jingliu, a character who has actually carried my ass throughout so many different simulated universe and Memories of Chaos. I feel bad because I have been benching her for the time being, but I promise that I'm gonna take her out of that bench. I've been having fun using Yanqing for cheats and giggles, but I do have to eventually bring out Jingliu, and I feel bad about benching Jingliu when some of her Eidolons are genuinely like so insane, such as her Eidolon 1. When using her ultimate or enhanced skill, Jingliu's crit damage increases by 24% for 1 turn, which already is absolutely insane. But then you also have the fact that if only 1 enemy is targeted in these attacks, the target additionally is dealt 100% of Jingliu's attack. So not only do you get a buff when you're attacking multiple enemies, but if for some reason you want to become a hunt character, you just can't do that by centering all damage to one unlucky individual. And personally speaking, I think that that's pretty busted. And then when you follow it up with her Eidolon 2, you have this, which is after using her ultimate, increases the damage of the next enhanced skill by 80%. Now, for those that might know, usually you want to use your ultimate when you're on your enhanced state. So that just seems absolutely insane. Especially because a lot of the times when I've played Jingliu, I find myself gaining my ultimate the moment that I enter the empowered state. So because of that, I would just be able to have access to this 80% extra damage, and that just feels absolutely brutal, absolutely insane, and I really wish I had these Eidolons. I don't think I would get them because I don't think I would go for many DPS Eidolons, but this one for sure is very tempting. Speaking of tempting Eidolons though, we have next Topaz, a character whose Eidolons I am very intrigued and I am very conflicted on whether or not I want them, because a very big part of me does want to go for her Eidolon 1 at the least and her Eidolon 2 at the most. And genuinely, I think this would help out my Dr. Ratio team as well as my Aventurine team, and just in general cooking up a completely follow-up attack team that just probably makes no sense, but I really want to run. And the reason being is because her Eidolon 1 says as follows: when enemies afflicted with Proof of Depth receive follow-up attacks, they will enter a deader state. This can take effect only once within a single action. The deader state increases the crit damage of follow-up attacks inflicted on the target enemy by 25%, stacking up to 2 times. When Proof of Death is removed, the deader is also removed. And just getting 50% crit damage sounds insane for follow-up attacks, especially for a character such as Dr. Ratio, who's already doing massive follow-up attack damage. But you know what? Why don't we just make it even bigger? And couple this with the fact that I want to get the Topaz Light Cone, and you have a wallet of mine that is very much crying. The other thing that I definitely do want is Topaz's Eidolon 2, which is not really a must for me, but it just feels like a really good quality of life in the sense of getting the fact that after Numby takes action and launches an attack, Topaz regenerates energy. That just means that you can keep her ultimate online as long as possible. It just feels absolutely incredible. It would be a very amazing quality of life, especially because the Topaz's ultimate costs a lot. If I recall correctly, it costs 130 energy. So being able to Giga Charge it by having Numby go into express mode feels incredible, especially with, again, a follow-up attack team with Dr. Ratio, Aventurine, and hey, maybe even potentially Clara. Just why not? Heck, I'm gonna break the rules of this a little bit, and I even wish I would get the Eidolon 4, which lets her have her action be advanced forward by 20% when Numby takes action. Yeah, I really should stop looking at some of these Eidolons because I'm making myself very tempted, but it is for the video. So if my wallet is crying after this, yeah, you know what happened. But moving on. Huohuo is the next character that I saw a lot of people were mentioning in the Reddit post that they really wanted to get her Eidolon 1, because legitimately it is insane and it is the most quality of life Eidolon that I think I've ever seen. And I think it might be the most impactful one, solely because it reads: the duration of Divine Provision, which is her passive stacks, produced by the talent is extended by 1 extra turn. And when Huohuo possesses Divine Provision stacks, all ally speed increases by 12%. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but 12% speed seems pretty good. And being able to have 1 extra turn of free healing is absolutely great and insane, and I personally adore that very much, because it just lets you be more skill point positive on top of, again, letting you heal up much faster than usual. So this is perhaps the best Eidolon 1 in the game as far as all that we have gone through. Again, I do not know all the Eidolons, and I'm going just little by little, but so far this one I think takes the cake for the best Eidolon 1, while Imbibitor Lune is still staking the best Eidolon 2. But actually, continuing on with Huohuo, Huohuo's Eidolon 2 says, if Huohuo possesses Divine Provision, when an ally is struck by a twin blow, the ally will not be knocked down and their HP will immediately be restored by an amount equal to 50% of their max HP. This reduces the duration of Divine Provision by 1 turn. This effect can only be triggered twice per turn, and honestly being allowed to revive 2 times feels pretty good. But once again, the revival mechanic, it is not something that I personally like to play around, since I feel like, you know, you're playing to defeat the enemy in the most efficient way as possible, and dying doesn't sound like the most efficient way as possible. Which is why I don't consider this to be the greatest Eidolon. It is a good Eidolon for things such as Swarm Disaster and Golden Gears as safety nets, but not one that I would personally recommend. The next character on the list is Argenti, and in all honesty, just a quick intermission, I genuinely thought that this video of me explaining the Eidolons wouldn't really take that long, but here we are at over 20 minutes of footage just talking about Eidolons. So I was the fool who thought that this would be a quick and easy video, and here I am having to edit a lot more than I expected. Somebody please help me. But with that being said, let us actually cover Eidolon 1 of Argenti, which reads as follows. Each stack of Apotheoses additionally increases crit damage by 4%. Now, once again, you might be asking, what exactly does Apotheosis do? Well, this is the mechanic that he gets on his talent, where he's able to stack up to 10 times crit rate by 2.5% at level 10, meaning that not only is he getting 25% more crit rate, he's also getting 40% crit damage. And that is absolutely insane, especially because he doesn't lose these stacks. So he's permanently at 40% crit damage the longer the fight goes on. So yeah, Argenti is an amazing character at E1. Really good Eidolon. That being said though, his Eidolon 2 leaves a lot to be desired, and it is because it is incredibly conditional. It reads as follows. If the number of enemies on field is equal to 3 or more when the ultimate is used, attack is increased by 40% for 1 turn. Now the reason why that is a bit rough is because it has to have more than 3 enemies on the field, otherwise you just don't get this passive. And in things such as Memory of Chaos, this is almost never gonna work. Possibly against, like, you know, the enemy that you want to pop off against is currently now Aventurine. You wouldn't be able to use this Eidolon 2, so that is quite rough. That being said though, again, that Eidolon 1 does look very nice, does look very tempting. So again, I'm making this video only to make things harder for myself and for my wallet. But yeah, we move from one broken Eidolon to the next one, because right now we're gonna be talking about Ruan Mei, the very first limited edition Harmony character that we got into the game. And of course, being Harmony, being a 5-star and being limited means that not only was her kit gonna be busted, but so will her Eidolons, especially Eidolon 1. An Eidolon that I have seen not only just 2 other streamers get it in a singular temple, but also my girlfriend was able to get this Eidolon 1 in the same temple, and I'm a little bit envious, but I'm also so happy for her, because whenever I got to play in her account, Ruan Mei helps me delete enemies in the best possible way, and I adore it. With that being said,
Her Eidolon 1 says as follows. While the ultimate field is deployed, the damage dealt by all allies ignores 20% of the target's defense. Now, ignoring defense is pretty busted. Personally speaking, one of my favorite mechanics, because that just means that you end up doing true damage. And true damage is a lot of fun. Moving on though, the Eidolon 2 says when Ruan is on field, all ally increases their attacks by 40%. I know that I read that completely wrong and I'm so sorry, but anyways, when dealing damage to an enemy that is weakness broken. That was really bad. We're gonna move on with it. But like legitimately, that passive, I'm a little bit iffy about. Like, true, you can break weaknesses really easily with Ruan, but like, the fact that this is conditioned to you needing to weakness break the opponent is rough. 40% attack increase is nothing to scoff at, but the fact that it is locked behind you needing to weakness break an opponent is the rough part, especially because there might be a chance where you weakness break an opponent at a very bad time and they immediately get their turn back and then they're no longer weakness broken, so you never got to use this Eidolon. So for that reason, I just feel like it's not the strongest. It is a good one, but it is just, again, very conditional. You need to time it and it's not convenient, so it's not high up there as her Eidolon 1 that is turbo busted. Alongside Ruan released Dr. Veritas Ratio with the most epic introduction into the game, and especially on that live stream, and the fact that we got him for free. He has been doing such amazing work in my account and has carried me through so much content to the point that I had to reward him with his own light bone. That being said though, he also has tempted me to get his Eidolons because they read as follows. The maximum stackable count for the trace summation increases by 4, and when the battle begins, immediately obtains 4 stacks of summation. This needs the summation passive to be enabled first. Now, what does summation do is once again one of the passives that Dr. Ratio has, which says when Dr. Ratio uses a skill, for every debuff on the target, his crit rate is increased by 2.5% and his crit damage is increased by 5%, and this effect can be stacked up to 6 times. Now, what I adore about this is that you don't need any debuffs on the opponent to do at minimum 10 crit rate with, I'm losing my mind for a second, 20% crit damage. I do not know why, math was harder for a quick moment. But that also means that at the peak point, he's doing 25% crit rate and 50% crit damage, which sounds absolutely busted. And I personally do adore that because, I don't know, it's just wonderful. I really need more of these Eidolons. It makes me tempted. Why am I doing this video? I keep saying that, I'm sorry. That being said, his Eidolon 2 is one that I'm about to read because I genuinely do not know it, which says this talent, when his talent follow-up attack hits a target, for every debuff that the target has, additionally deals imaginary damage equal to 20% of Dr. Ratio's attack. This effect can be triggered for a maximum of 4 times during each follow-up attack. So now he does even more damage. And as far as I know, this is additionally deals imaginary damage. No wait, this additionally deals additional damage. So this is still the same instance, meaning it can crit. And okay, this is actually pretty decent. Not the greatest one, but it is pretty good, all things considered. And I do like it. I wouldn't wail for it, but I do like it. So Dr. Ratio, I approve of you. As always, you're just amazing. For this next character, we're moving all the way to Penacony, because we finally have reached the 2.0 era characters. And with that being said, the first one we're gonna be going over is none other than Black Swan. Now, personally speaking, when I read her Eidolons, I wasn't really that impressed, but apparently from all that I've been reading on Reddit, Black Swan's Eidolon 1 is absolutely busted and it helps do a lot of DOT. So I was the fool in this case, and this is why we have to double check, and why never take my word as gospel, because I know for a fact I can get things wrong. That being said, Black Swan's Eidolon 1 reads as follows. While Black Swan is active in battle, enemies afflicted with wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock, so all the regular DOT elements, will have their corresponding weakness resistances reduced by 25%. Now, I didn't really realize this, but this also applies for the damage over time. And yeah, I was dumb, especially because this is busted for Simulated Universe. Like, this is absolutely insane. And if you actually look into her Eidolon 2, then it just feels even better, because you have the fact that when an enemy target afflicted with Arcana is defeated, there's a 100% base chance, plus Black Swan's effect hit rate, making it essentially 100%, of inflicting 6 stacks on adjacent targets. And those Arcana stacks are absolutely wonderful. Like, I just adore how much damage I've been able to do with them. So yeah, this is a certified Black Swan is busted moment. That Eidolon 2 requires there to be multiple enemies, otherwise, again, it's just gonna be useless. But overall, it's really neat for things such as pure fiction. And the main takeaway is that Eidolon 1 is busted, and I should have known, and I am dumb for thinking that it was really, really bad when it really, really wasn't. After having made such a horrible mistake with Black Swan, let us move forward into Sparkle, because Harmony is the opposite of the Nihility, and honestly, once again, we have a limited 5-star Harmony character that is gonna be absolutely broken, because obviously they have to be broken. Harmony is just like a busted path, and as such, once again, their Eidolons are gonna be absolutely insane. And Sparkle really is the example of this, because her Eidolon 1 reads, the Cypher effect applied by the ultimate lasts for 1 extra turn. All allies afflicted by Cypher have their attack increased by 40%. Now, what does Cypher do exactly? It enhances her talent, and her talent essentially does give you, I think at level 10, 6% more damage increase, and the Cypher effect gives you 10% damage increase. So to this 16% damage increase, you're adding a 40% attack damage bonus, and that is absolutely wonderful, and it makes me very happy. But what is even more insane is her Eidolon 2, which allows you to get that for each talent stack, all allies ignore 8% of the enemy target's defense when dealing damage to an enemy. And legitimately, not only are you giga buffing your attack, but you're giga shredding the enemy defense by 24%. So, again, this is just wonderful, and I was very tempted to get Sparkle's Eidolon on top of the Light Cone. I ended up restraining myself because I really needed Acheron, because I'm a Nihility main, and I really needed Aventurine, because my goodness me, he is just incredible. Finally, getting to the current patch of the game, we have Acheron, and genuinely speaking, her Eidolon 1 might be one of the strangest Eidolons, I feel. Not because it's anything too weird or too specific or too convoluted. It's just simple, but with a restriction that makes no sense. Because it literally just says, crit rate increases by 18% when dealing damage to debuffed enemies. And the reason why I say it makes no sense is because whenever you're playing an Acheron team, there's always going to be a debuff on an enemy, because that's how you play Acheron. So this should just say crit rate is increased by 18% and call it a day. Which does feel a little bit boring, I'm not gonna lie, but 18% crit rate is absolutely wonderful, especially because if I recall correctly, she also gets about 12% crit rate through her passive talents. No, she gets crit damage, my bad. So that's actually really good. No, yeah, I really do adore how nice this synergizes with her skill tree. I stand corrected. But what is more important and more broken than anything is Acheron's Eidolon 2, which reads as follows. The number of Nihility characters required for the trace The Abyss to achieve the highest possible effect is reduced by 1, meaning that you no longer need to have 2 Nihility characters in order to achieve your maximum potential. You only need 1. This means that now that spot is open for a Harmony character, KafkaE1, such as Sparkle, in order to absolutely Giga Shred your opponents. But wait, that is just not all, because when this unit starts, you gain 1 stack of Slash Stream and inflict 1 stack of Crimson Knot on an enemy with the most amount of Crimson Knots. So now you're stacking even faster. This is also one of the best Eidolons that I have seen, but I will still give the honor of the best Eidolon to Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune, because having an action forward 100% just for existing seems a bit more broken in my opinion. This finally lets us conclude all the Eidolons in an amazing way, because I am looking at the recording of just the Eidolons and it's gonna be over 40 minutes long, and that is insane. But legitimately, Aventurine's Eidolons are some of my favorite ones, because his Eidolon 1 increases crit damage for all allies with Fortified Wager, meaning that just you get free boost for everybody because he's just that generous. And after using the ultimate, provides all allies with Fortified Wager, meaning that hey, not only are you just doing massive damage and increasing the crit damage of the singular enemy staking, now your entire party is guaranteed to do more damage. This also can be really good to just activate the shields right before your DPS is about to attack. So on that hand, that's also incredibly useful. But on top of it all, it's just great that you can now sustain yourself that much easier. So for that reason, that is such a nice quality of life ultimate Eidolon that I personally do appreciate very much. His Eidolon 2 though just makes him be even more insane for absolutely no reason, because it essentially says that when using his basic attack, it reduces the target's all type resistance by 12% for 3 whole turns. Now, essentially he becomes a mini Silverwolf, and I adore that, especially because with the fact that you have his Eidolon 1 making it easier to sustain his shield, now you get to decrease the enemy defenses on top of the ultimate, meaning that you just do turbo and disgusting amounts of damage. And I caved and I did get Aventurine's Eidolon 1. And the more I read this Eidolon 2, the more I want it, because currently, at the moment of recording this video, Aventurine's Eidolon 2, and better said his banner, is still up for grabs. So we shall see. I don't think I'm gonna go for it this time around, because I do want so many of the new characters that are coming up, such as Robin, whatchamacallit, I forgot. Why am I forgetting? It's so late at night when I'm recording this. But I want Boothill, I want Firefly, I want Jade, I want all the characters. And it is a massive struggle. But yeah, this has been all the Eidolons of all the characters in the first year of Star Rail. And I personally adore how well they have made for some of these. And I personally do believe that the Space Cheese, also known as the Space Prism, has been key to some kind of revenue from Star Rail to be obtained. Not all of it, but definitely it has helped. For example, again, for Acheron, for Danhang and Baberlune, and for Huohuo Eidolon ones. Even though it might not be like the most shocking thing in the world. Because in Similar Universe, of course, you know, you're already getting a shitload of buffs. So it's not like one more, you know, it's not like this extra Eidolon is gonna make that much of a difference when you're already stacking up inhumane amounts of blessings. Oh yeah, also something very quick that I had forgotten to mention. I mentioned all the limited characters, but there's also the standard characters. And personally speaking, this is just a little addition into my commentary. But sometimes getting the Curio, whenever I was running one of my standard characters, it made me question which one of them would I pick. Because I didn't have Bronya, so I definitely wanted to get Bronya from the, you know, from the 5-star selector at 300 wishes. But I was also tempted to get Clara's Eidolon too, to increase her attack. At this point in time, Clara had been one of the characters that had carried me incredibly hard through so much content that I wish that it would be appropriate to reward her with an extra Eidolon, especially if she was going to continue carrying me, and she still is. So on one hand, I do feel a little bit bad that I didn't get her the Eidolon, but at the same time, Bronya has been doing amazing for my team. There's also the fact that back in that time, I had, I believe, Japard E1, so getting the Eidolon 2 also seemed very tempting. I can't remember what it was right now, but I remember that I was like, perhaps I will get it. I know that Himeko would give me speed, but at the time it wasn't really that big of a priority. Now that Pure Fiction is out, I'm happy that I got Eidolon 1, but I am unhappy that I lost it, because not that I lost the Eidolon, but I lost the Aventurine Eidolon 1 to Himeko Eidolon 1. I ended up getting Aventurine Eidolon 1, don't worry guys, but still. That is also something that I had forgotten to take into account, but something that I genuinely do adore. And I would definitely encourage you guys to go check out that Reddit post I had made with all this discussion. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was great seeing so many different perspectives on the topic at hand. And yeah, overall, I genuinely adore this community. And I really hope y'all have been having a wonderful time and that y'all enjoy your days. Also, happy anniversary to Star Rail, even though I'm a little bit too late, but still, it is absolutely great. So with all that being said, there's going to be an announcement after this, but I hope you'll have a great morning, night, afternoon, whatever time zone applies to you all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye. And now that we have post-editor me, here we have the announcements, which are two quick little things. The first one is thank you very much to every single one of y'all, because we literally have been able to reach 1.8 subscribers. Again, a number that genuinely blows my mind away every single time that I see it. And on top of that, there's also the fact that from the people that have been watching these videos, 8.2% of them are subscribed to the channel, meaning that the number has been increasing, and I'm really happy. Again, you all blow my mind every single time, and let's see if we can get this number to 10%. If not, that's perfectly fine, but thank you very much for watching as far into the video as you have. It is just insane and wonderful, and I really do appreciate you all. So thank you to those that have subscribed. To you that haven't subscribed, I encourage you to do so. Maybe you will like the content, especially if you like these sort of discussions where we're all just talking random nonsense at times, especially, you know, with the perfectly designed series where I go perhaps too in depth on certain things.
and I ramble on for hours like I have on this video as well. It's also free, you know, it only takes a second, and I'm messing up my spiel because I am very nervous and also very happy, so apologize. But you know, if at any point you feel like my content is lacking or I'm not like really delivering the kind of caliber that I should be delivering, you're always welcome to unsubscribe. And with that being said, we shall move on to the second announcement, which is that by the time that this video releases, it should be either Friday or Saturday, but the main thing is that on Saturday 27th at 9 p.m. EST, we're hosting a game show of Genshin trivia. I know it's not Star Rail, but it is still something that I'm very passionate about, that I helped. I even designed the board, so I'm very happy, and we're having our second program ever. So I would heavily encourage you guys to go check out the channel, go check out the Twitch stream. I really hope that you all can have as much fun as we will be having there. We will be having Tevat Barista, a wonderful streamer that I adore the fact that they make their own little drinks. We have Ethan, somebody that clears a lot of spiral abysses as their content and is absolutely great. Also in his YouTube shorts, TikToks, he always wraps them up with the freaking voice of "he's allergic to beans," and it makes me laugh. And we also have Annie, which is someone that has also done a fair amount of Spiral Abyss, but also is a lore streamer. So if you want to know more about the lore of Genshin Impact, I would heavily suggest you all go check them out. In this game show, we will also be words. In this game show, I have as my co-host Indie Saga, also someone that is very knowledgeable on the Genshin lore. So definitely a great place to be at, and I love hanging out on his Twitch chat because it can be chaotic, it can be fun, and it can be a lot of amazing discussions that it makes me happy to be there. And someone else that has helped out with the staff production for the show has been Evening Music, which without them we would be probably a little bit lost, given the fact that they're doing stage directions and that they are helping us feel more professional. So on that regard, it is absolutely great, and I cannot wait to see you guys there. And if you have heard this whole spiel and you do happen to go to that game show, just type poggers out of nowhere, just so that I know that you came from the YouTube video. With all that being said and done, thank you very much for watching once again, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.